Welcome back, fight fans. We're back with another one, maybe with some lag. No, it doesn't look too bad. And what a week it was. Wow. Everything changed. Literally everything changed after our broadcast last week. We'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, so today, of course, we're going to be talking about UFC 279, which went crazy. Oh, my hat. There we go. Which went insane. Then we had yesterday's Contender Series. That's week 8. Only 2 left. 2 left. And then this Saturday's card, which of course is UFC Vegas 60. And then, of course, there's no UFC next week. So next week we won't be talking about um, any card like that. But there actually is a Canadian card next week. I believe it's Unified MMA. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Because there's really only 2 that are on UFC Fight Pass. That's BFL and Unified. And I believe it's Unified next week. I'm pretty sure. But of course, that's all next week. Let's focus on this week, of course, instead. And that, of course, opens with UFC 279. And we'll just get right into it, of course. The prelims. I mean, we'll get into what happened with the main card when we get there. But first, let's quickly go through those prelims. It opened up with Johan Lioness and Darian Weeks. A little bit of a weird decision, I gotta say, but well, not necessarily. I mean, it was pretty close. It ended up being a split decision that went in favor of the Canadian Johan Lioness. And you know what? I did actually pick him going into this, but I gotta say it ended up being obviously close with a split decision. I actually thought it would have gone the other way. I mean, like after the fight was done, I thought that Weeks had done enough to win, but it was definitely close enough. I mean, I won't get too far deep into it. I mean, I thought that Lioness was up after the first round. I think, yeah, a lot of activity and damage in the first round. I thought he had won that. The second round, Weeks did get a lot better. He dropped Lioness to his knees for a little bit there. And with that, and he even got a huge takedown in there. So to me, I thought it was pretty clear that the the fight was tied 1-1 going into the final round. And then Lioness in the last round, in the final round, he did try and turn up the pressure. Then Weeks was kind of using some more grappling, wasn't necessarily making much progress there at the start. Then Weeks started to slow down a bit, but Lioness wasn't really taking advantage of it. Yeah, it was really, really close. Like I said, I mean, and I actually could have gone either way on that last round. I went in the direction of Weeks, but it was so close. It was really, really close. And the judges ended up going 29-28, 29-28, and then the 29-28 in the other direction, scoring it for Lioness. So I would have been on the Weeks side of it, the other 29-28. But like I said, it was one of those ones where it was definitely close enough for it to go either way. But hey, Canada gets a win. I got a win because I had picked Lioness. So, I mean, I'm happy about it, but you know, could have maybe gone the other way. The second one, Elise Reed, Melissa Martinez. I went with most other people on this one, which was Melissa Martinez. But I did have a feeling that Elise Reed was going to have a good chance because she had done pretty well in her last couple fights. So I wasn't really sure which way to go on this. But I mean, Martinez had a lot of success outside the UFC. Elise Reed, kind of 50-50. So, I knew it was going to be pretty close. That's all. That's all. And Elise Reed did end up getting it, and kind of exactly really the way I thought she was going to, with a lot of clinching and takedown. Yeah. Oh, she also did actually land in the first round. Elise landed a massive bomb. You don't normally see that, but especially in the lighter women, where they land something that's so big that it drops the other person down, at least even to their knees. That's pretty impressive because, like I said, 115, I think they're at 115. It's hard to get enough power to land something like that. You just don't really see it that often. So already, that was kind of the problem. And it really came down to size for the most part. And I mean, it makes sense, not even just power, but of course, in the clinch and the grappling and stuff like that, the bigger person usually does a lot better. So a little bit of a mistake there in one of my picks that I probably should have gone for Reed. I was kind of even thinking it, but again, I want to say that Martinez was undefeated. I feel like so I don't know that for sure because I can't remember that off the top of my head. But I want to say that she was even undefeated going into this one. So you kind of need to lean in that direction. But you know, I wasn't necessarily all that surprised, let's say, that Elise Reed won it. The next one, Alatong Haley, Chad Anheliger. I had Alatong Haley the whole time here. I mean, he's just looked absolutely incredible. And Anheliger, he's fairly new. And he's Canadian, which doesn't normally go well for us. So had to go in the direction of Alatong Haley on this one. And yeah, I mean, I stand by that for sure. I mean, he looked incredible. Definitely slowed down as the fight went on, and I mean, that's gonna happen when somebody like Alatong Haley goes hard for that long because he is very intense. He does have the activity, the pace, and that's obviously what won him this one. He's got the power too. But when you've got the size, you start to slow down as the fight goes on. And that's kind of what happened here. I mean, he did end up getting a 30-27 on all the cards, but it was the third round was a little bit closer, but he did seal it with a great takedown at the end there. And Alatong Haley was just landing heavy shots really throughout the entire fight. That was really what was happening there. Lots of power, lots of technique, patience as well from Alatong Haley. Very, very impressive prospect there. So, and he won the dominant unanimous decision, like I said, 30-27 on all the cards. And fair enough. He very well deserved. The next one, Norma Dumont, Danielle Wolf. I got to be honest, going into this one, I really wasn't sure how this one was going to go. I mean, on paper, it's like, okay, Dumont, clearly a top contender in the UFC. And I mean, she was ranked what, like 3 or 4 or so? I think. I think like 3, 4, 5, somewhere in there at bantamweight going into it. So, we knew she was going to be good, but also, Danielle Wolf with the boxing, I believe it was boxing. It might have been kickboxing. I can't really remember off the top of my head. So just 1-0 in MMA, getting that win on the Contender Series. So, it's kind of like, well, Wolf is huge. I mean, she's massive, massive. Clearly more of definitely a featherweight, even possibly a lightweight. I mean, that's kind of where she belongs, to be honest. I mean, really. So, how is Norma Dumont going to deal with that size and a pretty good striker? I mean, yeah, of course, Dumont was definitely younger as well. So there was that. So there were a lot of things to consider going into this one. I did eventually go with Dumont because, of course, I mean, the MMA experience for sure. And then, of course, the age. But it really was close. It really, really was close. Well, kind of. I mean, it was clear that Dumont had won, but at the same time, it was like you could tell that Wolf, although she might be a little bit older, getting on there, definitely good enough to, to make some damage, especially in a division that doesn't really have a whole lot going on in it right now. I mean, Yeah, because I believe this was at featherweight. I'm like 90% sure this was at featherweight. I didn't write it down, but yeah. So like there's really not a whole lot going on in that division at all. I mean, really anything, really. I mean, there's what, like 6 people? Like there's 6, I think, 6 or 7 women in the featherweight division that are kind of fighting. So, I mean, she's definitely one of the better ones. Yeah, we just need to build up the division. I mean, I just don't really understand why we're not seeing more on the Contender Series, or more, or even just like a season of Tough that we just bring in, like, half the season, honestly. Like, we need something. We need something. I mean, that division is dead right now. Even the bantamweights, there's not really a whole lot of bantamweights there either. I just don't understand what the thought process is there. I mean, you're trying to build the sport, build the division, really. I mean, you got Amanda Nunes there. I just don't understand what the thought process is of not building up the division when you have a belt for it. If you have a belt for it, you at least need rankings. They don't even have rankings at featherweight. So I mean, this is, it's people like this that you're missing out on by not having a featherweight division like that. Like there's a lot of talented women at 145 and even 155 out there that just aren't getting any opportunities at all, and it's because you're not really giving a stage for it. So, I don't really understand why they're not really going into it. I don't know. That's what I would be doing. I just don't really know. But I hope that this is maybe that kind of first step in that direction where they're kind of getting more, they're getting more people at least in the division. And then fighting. And and again, what can you say? I mean, Danielle Wolf showed up. Like, she's really good. She is just as good as I thought she was going to be, and just as good as she showed herself to be on the Contender Series. I mean, I I was pretty impressed. I was really impressed. Yes, of course, like I said, Dumont did end up winning. And it was, a lot, of course, to do with the grappling, which we knew was going to be more of a problem for Wolf because, again, more of a boxer, kickboxer kind of thing. But still, I mean, she did really well. So I just really hope that we're going to start to see more at 145 and even 135 for the women there. I just don't understand the thought process of the UFC. I mean, like, even just look at what's happening, not next week, of course, but the 2 weeks after that. You've got 2 cards that are headlined by the ladies. So, like, you're clearly trying to push it in that direction. So why are you not trying to get more bantamweights, more featherweights? They're out there. They're out there. I've seen them. I do a lot of research into other cards as well, and they definitely are out there. They exist. I mean, there's Kayla Harrison and Cyborg. Those are 2 right there that are not in the UFC. I mean, Cyborg, I don't think she's going to get another UFC chance. She did not go well with with Dana White in the UFC in general. So I think that's done. But like, Kayla Harrison, she exists. There's talent out there. There's the whole division in PFL. Like, there's talent there. I mean, yeah, Kayla Harrison's clearly the best one. I mean, I don't think that's any doubt. But Pacheco's in there. I'm trying to think of other people. I can't think of any off the top of my head. I think Vanessa Mello was in there, and she was in the UFC before. So there's people out there. You just got to give them a chance, and I just don't really see that happening right now. I don't really know why. I mean, there's other promotions as well that are doing 145 and 155 for women, and they're pretty good. I've seen some of the fights. So yeah, I just don't really know why they're not really going harder into that. I don't know. But anyway, that's enough of that. I mean, if we had a bigger audience here, we could maybe get something going, get a conversation going, and even maybe, spread something on Twitter or Insta, where we kind of get the ball rolling a little bit, trying to get these, get the 145ers and even the 155ers and the women to kind of get something going in the UFC. But here we are. It's okay though. We'll get there eventually, hopefully. And yeah, hopefully make some waves with that because they deserve it. They really do. Fight number 5. Chris Barnett, Jake Collier. I was going with Collier on this, like pretty much everybody else. I was going towards a decision because, well, they're both in a lot of decisions, especially Jake Collier. But yeah, and you know what? It was actually going in that direction. Jake Collier was winning. He won the first round clearly, was winning the second round, basically won every moment of this fight until he kind of just made a mistake. Like, I think he did get hit though. He got hit, but then actually no, that's right. I think he ended up going for a takedown. What was it here? Second round. Yeah. Oh, I didn't even write because I don't think I even fully saw what was happening. But no. I distinctly remember Collier. I believe he was going in for a takedown, which is a little bit weird. I don't know why he was really trying to do that. I mean, I guess, that's kind of what he did a little bit in the first round too. But yeah, found himself on his knees, and then Barnett quickly moved around. He is a fast guy, quickly moved around, and then took his back, and then really started going in with the ground and pound. And I mean, at that point, it's like you've got somebody who is probably actually 280, 290 pounds. I mean, he missed weight at heavyweight. So you got to think that he probably gained another 15 or 20 pounds back within that day. Excuse me. And then, probably weighed about 280 pounds, if not more than that, against Jake Collier. So, when you got somebody like that on top of you, you're probably not getting back up. Like it's like it's really, really hard to get back up. So, I mean, it was kind of just done from there. And it was just one key mistake. Like I said, Collier was doing really well, clearly winning the fight. And Barnett turned it around. And you know what? Even though I lost that and actually lost quite a bit of money because of that, because I had him in a decent amount of parlays that were looking really good. And he was the only one that lost in the parlays. But anyway, so lost quite a bit of money because of that. But I will say, as an MMA fan and as a fan of Chris Barnett, I was actually pretty happy. I was really happy to see that. I mean, you gotta love the guy, the dancing, the front flip that he does when he wins. I mean, it's all just incredible. And he's a super nice guy, super funny guy too. Just an amazing, amazing guy. So, I mean, kind of sad and pissed off that I lost the bets, but you know what? Hey, went to a good guy anyway, and that's all I can ask for. At least if I lose, I want it to be to somebody that I at least like, Then after that, we had Dennis Tillulin and Jamie Pickett. I gotta say, I did have Pickett on this one, but there was a huge part of me that was thinking, I've got a feeling that Tullulin's gonna somehow dominate this fight. And that's kind of what he did. It was mostly Tillulin getting it going there. I'll quickly kind of read through to see if there was anything. Yeah, Tillulin was kind of pressuring hard early. And he was the one that won the first round. I mean, he was definitely pushing the action, landed a huge flurry at the end of the round there. So he clearly won the first round, and then really just kept that going into the second round. He had the momentum and just kept it going and eventually got the TKO in the second round there. Barely before the second round ended there. I should add that as well. And the first one that I had talked about last time that I was super excited about. I love this guy. I love this guy so much. Jailton Almeida. Oh my God. I mean, like right away. I mean, I even said this last time. I mean, a very clear first round finish. I even put it on Tapology. I put money on it. First round submission. That's what I bet on, and we cashed in. I really don't think there was too much of a different way that this could have gone. Like, he's just too good. He's just too good for people, especially when they're just making their debut. I mean, they kind of just threw Turkali under the bus, to be honest. I mean, really, I guess they were giving Turkali that opportunity to be like, hey, you didn't get the contract. Excuse me. You didn't get the contract, but you looked okay. Let's give you the shot. Let's at least give you a fight in the UFC. We know you're probably not going to win, but we're at least giving you that opportunity to be on the stage. And that's kind of what they were going for here. And like it went exactly how we expected. I mean, Almeida literally just went for a quick takedown right away, basically what Chimaev did too. And then just kind of worked his way into it until he got the submission in the first round, which again is exactly what Chimaev ended up doing, which we'll get into later. But yeah, I mean, there was no question that was going to happen. Just absolutely sensational. He is, and I've said this before, I really, 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 truly believe that Almeida will get a title shot within the next couple of years for sure. I mean, especially with light heavyweight not being the most dense division. I mean, he's going to smoke a couple of these guys, get the title shot right away. I mean, he's just way too good, especially for this division. He is so unbelievably good. Again, not unlike Khamzat Chimaev, or even actually, well, like Lorosenko was talking a lot about last week, Shavkat Rakhmonov as well. They've all got that vibe where it's like they are so far ahead of everybody else in their division that it's really not even close. That's really what's happening, which is crazy to watch. As a fan of a sport, you see it with other sports too, like Tiger Woods, or then Rory McIlroy possibly now. And then, like Mayweather, you see it with like Ronaldo and Messi. It's crazy to finally see somebody in MMA that's doing that. I mean, we had Anderson Silva, of course, and we've had John Jones, we've had GSP, even, like people like that. It's crazy to see people like that come up because they're not there yet. None of them have had a title shot. None of them have reached that pinnacle yet. But to see it happen, it's crazy. Crazy as a fan of the sport to watch, and very entertaining, of course. Anyway, we're really dragging on with these recaps. I mean, I know we're having some good thoughts here too, but we need to probably move on a little bit faster. Second prelim I talked about last time, Hakeem Dawodu, Julian Erosa. I don't think that Dawodu was necessarily a bad pick. I mean, he was clearly having a pretty rough week, I gotta say. I was even actually thinking about flipping to Erosa like Friday night, after those weigh-ins. I mean, like he was clearly sucked out quite a bit, meaning, like clearly lost a lot of weight. I mean, he was still looking massive, but also looking fairly weak. And he even missed weight. He missed weight by, I think it was like, I want to say 2 or 3 pounds. And he was already looking like, I really don't think he could have possibly lost any more weight. So, like when you're that drawn out by the weight cut, that's not good. It's not good, especially when you're going against somebody who's very, very good. So I was thinking of switching my pick. I did end up sticking with Dawodu, though. Clearly a mistake. But yeah, it's just that weight cut. I'm not sure. Maybe he's getting too big to get to fight at featherweight. I'm not really sure, but yeah. I think it actually might be his first weight miss that he's ever had. It's definitely one of the only ones because he's usually pretty good. So I don't know, like maybe he's just gonna have to get a little smaller if he wants to go fight at featherweight. Maybe he has to move up. Like I don't know. I don't know what to do with Dawodu, to be honest. I don't really know. Because like I said, he was huge. He was massive on the scales there, and I just really don't think he could have lost any more weight. I don't know. And he was, like I said, 2 or 3 pounds over. I just don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, main card. Main card now. Johnny Walker, Ilan Cutelaba. I said going into this, I was saying a first round finish, but I mean, I think to most people, including myself, that meant a first round KO, because I don't think any of us really saw a submission coming. Because Walker, I can't remember when they said his last submission was, but it was years ago. He is not a submission kind of guy, so I was definitely surprised by that. I definitely thought we were going to see the KO instead, but hey, first round finish for Johnny Walker. We got it done. I mean, and it really happened exactly, well, first, for the most part, how we kind of thought it was going to be going. Both of them pretty wild to start. Uh, yeah, a lot of impressive wrestling from Cutelaba, but then he did end up obviously getting reversed. They went back to their feet there. Then it was Walker who actually did the takedown, and that was really the surprising part. Took Cutelaba's back, and he had a few different submission attempts there, but ultimately finally locked one in, and then got the finish in the very first round. Excuse me. Again, did not see that one coming. I was definitely expecting ground and pound, or even just a huge KO on the feet. But yeah, did not see the submission coming, but here we are. Still got the first round finish, though. Amazing for Johnny Walker. And I kind of, we kind of expected that. Like I said last week, he was, he's been fighting the much better people. Cutelaba, a little bit too wild for his own good most of the time, and hasn't really been beating anybody that's, that's in that top 15 kind of picture. So made sense. Made a lot more sense to have Walker on that one. Then we had Irene Aldana and Macy Chiasson. This was another one of those ones that was affected by the weight. They moved up to 140. Yeah. So it was originally wow, my throat. It was originally set at 135. They ended up moving it up to 140. Obviously, one of the many weight changes. I believe there were a couple other ones that ended up being at catch weight too that weren't supposed to be. But yeah, this was one of them. And even going into this one as well, I knew this one was going to be close to. I was going with Aldana by decision. I mean, well, we said this last time, of course, because this was actually one that I did end up talking about, because this one didn't change. It changed the weight, but it did not change the actual matchup. But yeah, oh man, after that weight cut though, after the weight switch though, I will admit that was another one I was really thinking about changing. A lot of really weird things happening last week for sure. Because I mean, and we knew it was because of Chiasson that they changed the weight, because she ended up weighing in at about 139, I believe, and Aldana came in at 136, I believe, or something like that. And Aldana had even said, actually, in the post-fight interview, so we didn't know this going into it, but that she was, easily on pace to make weight. Chiasson called in, said, we're not even sure if we can make 140 right now. That's what she was saying. So it's like, with that kind of a size difference, especially since we already knew that Chiasson was going to be the bigger one in there, I was a little worried, but I didn't want to change it, because again, especially I watched a little bit of footage for this one, and Aldana definitely looked a lot better, and she's been beating the better people, so it kind of made sense. So yeah, I did end up keeping it, and I'm obviously glad I did, because not only did she win, she actually got a finish here, and one of the most unique finishes we've ever seen. The first up kick to the body that's ever been landed, or finished, I should say, in the UFC. I mean, I've never heard of that even happening anywhere else. I don't know if that's ever happened anywhere else, but I definitely not that often, that's for sure. And honestly, I think we're going to be seeing that quite a bit now. Yeah, because that's pretty effective. Because like, why aim for the head every single time? You know, it's way up there when you're down, when you're lying on your back like that. It's way up there. It's a hard target to hit, especially with head movement. Your head moves like, you know, you can dodge it and all that. But the body, that body stays stationary. You've got to like physically be moving side to side to avoid that. And yeah, you know, you can block it, but you're more likely going to be trying to block your head. So, I mean, that target's wide open all the time. It's not, I'm surprised, you know, now that I've seen it, and I think this is like the calf kicks again, where it's like now that people see it and think, oh, that's different. I've never thought of doing that. I think now we're going to actually be seeing that quite a bit because it's so obvious when you think about it to do that. Like, why wouldn't you do that? You know, so I think we're going to be seeing that quite a bit more. But yeah, that was the TKO in the third round. And I'm trying to see what I had thought. Yeah, I thought it was tied actually going into the third. Because Aldana, I thought pretty clearly won the first round, especially with that brutal armbar. Um, yeah, yeah. Because Chiasson, I was trying to read to see if I had gotten that right. Yes. So Chiasson was stuck in a pretty brutal armbar, and she was doing pretty well the rest of the round too. So Aldana, I thought won the first round. Second round, you know, I kind of thought that Chiasson had won that one. I mean, she ended up taking Aldana's back, landed a lot of elbows, looking for a submission as well. So I thought it was 1-1 tie, and then of course we ended up seeing that insane TKO. Amazing. Then it was the three fights that were flipped around. Of course, last week when I was doing this broadcast, I didn't know that, of course. I mean, we do this way before the weigh-ins. We do this on Wednesdays, of course. I mean, streaming it live right now, Wednesday, of course. So didn't know about the chaos that was about to ensue. I mean, if you don't know about the whole backstory, we'll just quickly go through it. Basically, um, well, there was a lot of things actually going on. On the Thursday, lots of crazy stuff going on backstage. They ended up canceling the press conference because of it, and that's never happened before with the UFC from what they were saying. So insane stuff right there. That all started with Chimaev and Holland, and then Chimaev started getting into it with Diaz as well. It was kind of and then there were just so many people backstage. Like there was like 30 for Chimaev, 30 for Diaz or something. They were all yelling at each other and a lot of crazy stuff backstage. So that was the Thursday. Then the Friday came in. Chimaev misses weight by 7.5 pounds, I believe, or was it 8.5? Oh yeah, no, it was 7.5 technically because there was uh, the 1 pound allowance. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah, so then Chimaev misses weight and by a huge amount. Obviously, Diaz doesn't take that fight anymore. But the commission wouldn't have let it happen anyway, let's be honest. So then we ended up switching. The main event becomes then, of course, Ferguson and Diaz, which is a much better matchup for both of them. They were both about to get destroyed, let's be honest. And and then, of course, the co-main ends up being Holland and Chimaev. And then, of course, the fight that we're about to talk about ends up being Daniel Rodriguez, D-Rod, and Li Jingliang, who got a horrible break this week. Wow, the world hates Li Jingliang. My goodness, unfucking believable. The shit that he went through this week, I feel so bad. I love the guy. I loved the guy already going into this weekend. So I mean, to see that happening to him, oh man, what a robbery. Anyway, so that was kind of really the whole backstage thing for that, and you know, it made a lot of sense. And I mean, apparently, Chimaev actually missed weight because the doctor told him to stop cutting, and you could kind of tell, like, you know, he easily could have made weight because he didn't really even look that thin, and he looked fine on Friday. Like he didn't look thin at all. He looked totally fine. So there was that weird conversation I guess they had with the doctor, told him to stop cutting, and then realizing that he was obviously going to not be fighting Diaz anymore. He thought, well, it makes sense to then go start to gain a few pounds, because apparently he was actually at about 174, I believe, 174, 175, I believe I heard. So he actually gained a few pounds back because he realized, because I believe he then realized that, okay, he was probably going to be fighting at 180 instead, knowing that he wasn't going to be fighting Diaz. So, who could replace him? Had to be somebody that weighed 180, basically. So, kind of made sense to do that. It looks bad, but, it makes sense when you end up thinking about it the whole way through. And hearing about all the different things that went on. Again, not a great look for Chimaev, but again, I get it. Like you can't really, if the doctor tells you to stop, the doctor tells you to stop. I mean, you can't, he could have still done it anyway, I guess. But, what can you do? I don't know. So I'm not really that mad about it, to be honest. But anyway, so that's how the matchups ended up being anyway. But of course, that meant that that D-Rod, who weighed in at 180, of course, to fight Holland, that meant that he was fighting Li Jingliang, who weighed in at 170 because he was going to be fighting Tony Ferguson. So, that meant that he was the only one out of the whole group that ended up being at a huge weight discrepancy on the night. But I will say, by the way, I actually still picked Li Jingliang. I did, because I had to obviously, of course, remake my picks, like, because of those 3 fights that were shuffled around. So I ended up picking Li Jingliang and Chimaev, of course, Chimaev. And then I ended up picking Nate Diaz as well. And you know what? In my mind, I went 3-3 because that was some bullshit that we were about to talk about for D-Rod and Li Jingliang. And yeah, I mean, I think honestly, pretty much the entire world agrees, because I mean, Dana White was saying how he thought it was a robbery. I thought it was a robbery. All, like, most of the media, most of Twitter, the commentators, every single person that I kept seeing kept saying, wow, that was garbage that Lee had won that. So you can already tell who is going to be winning the bonus for worst card of the month. This one specifically, for sure. The 2 judges that somehow fucked up this clear decision in favor of Lee. So yeah, that was some garbage. And like I said, I did pick him too. So I mean, I was like, oh, I'm gonna clean up on this. I mean, I got Lee here. I killed that. I know Chimaev's going to win. I'm pretty sure Diaz is going to win. Looking fantastic. And then the judges fucked me over, and everybody else again over once again. And by the way, and which is why I ended up making him the most valuable fighter. Because the only person who got completely screwed at every single stage, all 3 days of the week, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, was Li Jingliang. What a champ, honestly. I hope things start to turn around for him, because he is getting screwed left and right by the UFC. It is crazy. And not even actually by the UFC, by just things that are happening. Like, they're not even like, the things are just happening to him, and it's awful. It is awful to see. And I mean, well, I guess he was screwed by Chimaev, but still. But anyway, he took that matchup because he's an absolute gangster. Anyway, that aside, I mean, clear 29-28 for Lee. I thought, first round, I thought maybe, like, it could have been Rodriguez in the first round, possibly. But I mean, Lee was doing just so much more. I mean, he got a possible knockdown too, because it wasn't clear if that was a knockdown or not. But he got that, and I mean, he got these huge leg kicks, lots of leg kicks. So I thought the first round was probably Lee. The second round, clearly Lee. I mean, really, a lot of damage, a lot of output. So I thought it was already probably 2-0 for Lee there. And the third round, Rodriguez was definitely doing a little bit better. Lee was starting to slow down. So Rodriguez had the extra output. But so I thought it was a fairly clear 29-28. I guess it would have been that first round that tripped up a couple of those judges, but I don't know. I really thought it was pretty clear that Lee was going to win, like everybody else, like I said. So that was some garbage, especially to see after what happened to him through the rest of the week. I mean, I know that's not going to factor into the judging, of course, but you don't want to see it. That's for sure. That's not something you want to see. Anyway, then we had the co-main, Khamzat Chimaev, Kevin Holland. I don't know what people were expecting here. This is literally exactly what I expected. And I'm a little surprised, actually, that a few people were so, especially Dana White and the commentators and a lot of other people, the media, they were like, oh, like, I'm so surprised. Like, I can't believe Chimaev just ran through Holland like that. I don't really know what you were expecting. I don't. Like, Chimaev is clearly far and away, like not even close, really, the best wrestler in the UFC. I mean, like, that's unbelievable what he did, and he just proved it again. But I mean, look at what he's done in all of the other fights, except for against Burns, because he didn't want to. He didn't feel like doing it. That's the only reason he didn't do it. It's not because he couldn't. He didn't want to. And I've said that before. So, I mean, to think that he was going to have problems with Holland when Holland has already had problems with grappling, like, are you even listening to yourself? It's like Chimaev has absolutely destroyed every single person with his wrestling to this point. So it's like, what do you think Holland's going to do? Like, yeah, like, he's tall, he's long, he's got some decent defense, which we actually saw. He did defend takedowns and submissions for a little while, but I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, Chimaev is completely relentless. And like I said, clearly the most skilled person in the entire UFC, maybe even honestly in the entire planet at what he's doing. Like, there is nobody better at what he's doing than Chimaev. And I mean, that could easily change. We could see somebody, Bo Nichols coming up. If there's anybody that's going to stop a takedown like that, it would be somebody like Bo Nichols. So maybe, but it's just like he's just so relentless with what he's going to do that he will get a takedown if he tries. And that is exactly what we saw. So I don't know why everybody was kind of surprised that it was like that. But I mean, I just started laughing, honestly. As soon as Chimaev picked him up and started flailing him around, I kind of just started laughing because I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I was expecting. And it's very entertaining to watch, of course. And I mean, I love Holland, but I mean, that is literally 100% what I expected. So no surprises there for me at all. That is exactly what I expected. And I expect that will continue throughout his next few fights, whoever that may be. Like, literally whoever that may be, he's going to do the exact same thing. I mean, he's just way too good for that division, especially. Finally, the main event, Nate Diaz, Tony Ferguson. I mean, I thought it was probably going to go to a decision, and I think it probably was going to be going that way. Ferguson just made a clear mistake. And you know what? It wasn't even up to Ferguson. He was listening to his corners and his coach that specifically told him to take the fight to the ground. All he did was listen to them and paid the price. So, I mean, to be honest, I don't even really fault Tony Ferguson for that submission loss. He was clearly going to lose anyway because, Diaz is just, he's still kind of, he's still that guy where he can easily still fight somebody that, he's not going to be beating anybody that's young and a convincing contender. Like, I just don't think that's really in the cards anymore. I mean, he's not going to be fighting for the UFC really at all anymore anyway. But I'm just saying, Diaz is good enough to beat people like Ferguson and maybe even give Conor a decent fight, to be honest. I really do think that. But, you know, but Ferguson just isn't really in that spot anymore, and I hate to see it. And also, Diaz is just the bigger guy. You know, he regularly fights at 170. He was cutting down quite a bit to get to 155. Well, not quite a bit, but he was still cutting down to get to 155. And he's okay at 170. He's fine. He's fine at 170. Whereas Tony Ferguson, like he's definitely a little bit smaller in that. He looked good, but like I'm saying, neither one of them is at that point anymore where they're going to be fighting anybody in the top 15 and getting a win. Like, unless it's like you really got to look for somebody who is going to have a problem with Tony Ferguson's style. So I just don't see him being in any kind of conversation for, like, especially the top 5, maybe not even the top 10. And I hate to say it because I love both of them, but yeah, I just don't see that. But yeah, anyway, I wasn't really surprised by Diaz winning. I just thought it was going to be by decision. Anyway, but yeah, and I mean, I think that was pretty obvious. Like, it was a good fight to watch. It was fun to watch, of course. I mean, you can't not have fun when it's those two. So of course it was fun to watch, but at the same time, it was like you could tell, we're not giving either one of these guys anybody that's coming up that's going to be a huge deal. Like, you can't give somebody like, who are we seeing soon that's going to be fighting? Oh, Gamrot. I'm thinking of Gamrot. Like Gamrot or Tsarukian. Like, you can't give either one of those guys to Ferguson. I mean, they're just going to absolutely destroy him, and I you don't want to see that. So I think it's the end for Ferguson in that kind of conversation. But is he going to have entertaining, fantastic fights? Yeah, of course he is. Of course he is. He's Tony Ferguson, and we're gonna love to see that. But that's the end of those kind of fights. Anyway, and this fight was pretty obvious to point that out. And I mean, a lot of people were being kind of mean about it online. I don't think either one of them deserved that, but yeah, it was still pretty clear. Like, the point still came across where it's like, okay, don't give him anybody like that's 25 or 28 who's like, only lost once or twice. Like, they're going to destroy this guy. Anyway. And I actually agree with Chimaev too. It's like, like, what was Diaz going to do to Chimaev? Seriously, like, he was going to get absolutely destroyed. And I think that was made pretty clear immediately. So it was pretty clear how bad it was going to be, not just for actually how bad it was going to be for Diaz, but also how bad it was going to be for Ferguson. He got destroyed by Diaz. I mean, not destroyed by Diaz. Diaz, he got the leg kicks, which was pretty impressive. But I mean, Lee beat somebody who was 180 pounds convincingly too, I might add. Like, it wasn't even really that close. So, I mean, he was going to destroy Tony Ferguson. He was going to absolutely, dominate him in every way. It was probably still going to be a decision, maybe actually submission, but it was still going to be dominant. And Diaz was going to get absolutely destroyed. So, I mean, it was way better that it turned out this way, so we didn't see a couple of legends get absolutely killed on TV. Like, I mean, it was not going to be close. So, I mean, I think most people you should really be happy that it turned out this way instead of what we originally were going to see. Anyway, the bonuses. KO of the night, Irene Aldana, I had because of the kick. First one that's ever been landed in the UFC, and to be honest, it might be one of the first ones ever in the sport to be landed, which is crazy that we're still finding new ways to win. Absolutely insane. So that had to be KO of the night for sure. Sub of the night I gave to Diaz. I would have given it to Chimaev, but honestly, that whole weight the whole thing, and you know what? The UFC did the exact same thing too, and I'm kind of glad they did, because technically he was bonus eligible, because technically he didn't miss weight. Like, he didn't miss weight because they switched to a catch, which they switched to 180 with Holland. So technically he actually did not miss weight. But, you know, it's not a good look. He missed weight by 7 or 8 pounds in the Diaz fight. So, you know, it just feels weird to give him a bonus like that. So that's why I didn't give him the bonus, or else that would have been the clear bonus. And I was thinking Almeida as well, but you know what? It was kind of like, you know, like that's exactly what I expected to happen. Whereas I don't think really we saw Diaz submitting Tony Ferguson. Like, I don't think that was really something that we thought was going to happen. So I was way more impressed with that. So that's my reasoning behind the bonus in that one. But you know, I could have gone with Almeida too, for sure. And then we had the brawl of the night. I mean, Diaz and Ferguson was the clear choice. There was another. Oh yeah, the two heavyweights, Collier and Barnett, was the other one I was maybe thinking of. But yeah, there weren't really a whole lot of fights that were exciting that also lasted long enough. And this one was the 4 rounds, so it seemed like the obvious choice to do. Also, it's like two fan favorites. It's going to be a classic fight that it's like, oh, I'm glad that fight happened. And it's just going to be one of those fan ones where it's like, hey, remember when Diaz fought Ferguson after that whole fiasco? Crazy. So that had to be the bonus. That had to get the bonus of the night for me. Most valuable fighters, Li Jingliang. I mean, talk about the most valuable fighter of the week. Good God. I mean, not only did he, we talk about, the little bit of the suit thing, he didn't get to show off his suit at the press conference, but even outside of that, just always a champ, just always goes with everything, doesn't get mad, doesn't get upset at any point. Super chill guy, super nice guy, just an all around awesome dude. And then, of course, to then be okay with switching to a much harder opponent. I mean, he was going to get that win against Ferguson for sure. So then to go on to a much harder opponent who weighed 10 pounds heavier. I mean, what else can you say about that? That's incredible to actually go along with that and be like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And then not only that, but actually win the fight. I mean, because again, he won the fight. Let's be honest. He won the fight. The judges just clearly weren't paying attention and scored it wrong. That's all. That's literally all you could say. So I mean, he clearly won the fight. So I mean, after all that, and then to get robbed like that too. I mean, by the judges, a clear choice for most valuable fighter for me. I mean, yeah, what else can you say? But I will say I did add a second most valuable fighter for the week, and that had to be Nate Diaz. Because it's probably his last fight in the UFC, or maybe we'll see him one more time eventually. Maybe close up that Connor chapter, maybe. But honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't fight in the UFC anymore. We'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But I had to give him the bonus on the way out. But also, he was originally supposed to fight Chimaev. He took a Chimaev fight on his way out. How gangster is that? I mean, seriously, just to take that fight and just not give a fuck. Like, I'm out after this. Like, see ya. Just give me Chimaev. I don't care. That's crazy. That's a crazy attitude to have. Also, so he dropped, and then he took a new opponent. And that new opponent was Tony Ferguson. So, I mean, that's also never an easy fight. Tony Ferguson is still never an easy fight because he's very unpredictable. So then to take that fight and just go through this entire fight week, not giving a fuck, still being Nate Diaz, classic Nate Diaz, I mean, deserved a bonus in my mind. And he also won, by the way. So he went from definitely losing his fight to having a pretty good shot against Ferguson and then getting the win. Amazing way to end your UFC career. I definitely deserved a bonus on that one. Before we go, that is the end of the card, obviously, UFC 279. But before we go for a short break, I will quickly talk about week 8 of the Contender Series, which was fantastic. Another great week in the Contender Series. 5 more contracts as well. We'll quickly go through them. Daniel, excuse me. Daniel Marcos, Brandon Lewis. This one was iffy for me going into it. I had Lewis, but only because Marcos has been inactive for the last 3 years. So I thought, okay, Brandon Lewis looks good. Other guys been inactive for 3 years. It seemed like the right way to go, but it really was close. Except for the fight itself, that was not necessarily that close. I mean, Marcos pretty much really just dominated the entire fight, really from start to finish. Lewis did have some moments here and there, but it was a pretty dominant decision for Daniel Marcos. Did not look like he had taken any time off at all. I had him winning, I believe, all 3 rounds. Lewis never gave up, over and over. I mean, he's definitely got that fighting spirit. He definitely wanted the win for sure. I mean, he could have given up at any point because Marcos was hitting him with some crazy things, but Lewis just kept going, kept walking forward, kept going, trying to get that win. And I mean, like I said, it wasn't necessarily that close, but man, was he trying the whole time. What was I going to say here? There was something. I can't remember what I was going to say now. But yeah, I mean, I thought that was a pretty clear contract one. Credit, all credit deserved. You need to give Lewis some credit as well for even staying alive for all 3 rounds. But yeah, and I mean, I do think that Daniel Marcos is probably going to have a little bit of trouble in the UFC at sometimes. But I gotta say, I mean, you also got to remember he wasn't fighting for 3 years, and he came back and looked pretty good. So, what is he going to look like after a training camp in his first UFC fight? We'll see. But honestly, I think it's going to be pretty impressive. I think he's going to look pretty good. Second fight, Bruna, Brazil. Oh my God. And Marnik, man, going into this, Bruna, Brazil, huge favorite. I thought it was going to be a little closer, to be honest, because Marnik, man, also looked decent on paper. But I did have Bruna, Brazil for sure on this one. And really using that length, that's really kind of what was favoring her, because she is actually, I mean, yeah, Marnik, man, is pretty small. She's probably actually more of an atom weight, to be honest. I mean, she could probably make 105. But 115 still makes sense. But Bruna Brazil, though, I mean, she looks like 125. She really does. She is huge. She is very tall and strong, and she was using that early. Just the constant kicks, these amazing, beautiful, beautiful kicks. It's really hard. It honestly actually is really hard to throw up kicks that look that smooth and powerful at the same time. It's just, man, those kicks, seriously, her kicks are incredible. Landed a lot of them, and that ended up being what capped it off. Landed one of 6 KOs in Dana White's Contender Series history by a woman. So that's already pretty impressive. But then to get it like this, a head kick KO. Oh man, I mean, seriously, if you haven't seen it, watch that fight. You don't even necessarily need to watch the whole fight. Just watch the last like 20-30 seconds or so. Man, that kick, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Landed it perfectly. And it was actually her foot. It wasn't even the shin. If she would have landed shin to chin on that, oh my God. Oh man. I mean, man would have, oh, actually, that's funny. Man would have definitely been, I mean, she was already knocked out cold by landing her foot to her face. I mean, I can't imagine what the shin would have done. I mean, she would have been out for a long time at that one. That would have been bad. But yeah, amazing KO for Bruna, Brazil. So very impressed there. And she looked good other than that too. It wasn't just the one kick that she just happened to land. Like, she looked good the whole time. Fight number 3, Trevor Peek and Malik Lewis. I had Lewis going into this because he's got a lot of finishes. Both of them were undefeated though. And you know what? I felt good about the pick in the first round. I can tell you that, because the first round, just absolute dominance from Malik Lewis. It was not even close. Knocked him down multiple times, almost finished him a lot of times. So clear first round for Malik Lewis. And then second round, Peek came back. Lewis was, tired from all of that action in the first round, and Peek just basically ended up waiting him out and ended up going for the finish here, and he got it. Got the second round TKO. What can you say? You don't empty your gas tank that early. That's all. Yeah. So, I wasn't sure if he was going to get the contract there because, like I said, it's like you got destroyed the first round. So, if anybody came in, if he fights anybody in the UFC that has a lot of cardio or that's even tougher, he's going to have a problem, which is why I'm not really sure how he's going to do in the UFC, because he did end up getting the contract. But yeah, I wasn't really sure about that one, especially at bantamweight, considering bantamweight is clearly, if not the best division in the UFC, definitely one of the best divisions in the UFC. So, it's kind of tough to say how he's going to do. I don't think he's necessarily going to do that well, but we'll see. You never know, especially with that chin. Clearly he got rocked quite a few times and he was still in it. So it's just a matter of, can you overcome that with somebody that really is not going to stop for all 3 rounds? Can you do that? Because bantamweight, that is what people do at bantamweight. I don't know if he can do that. So we'll see with that. But anyway, fight number 4, Ikram Aliskerov and Mario Souza. Listen, I thought Aliskerov was definitely going to win this. Really didn't think he was going to basically destroy Souza's arm in less than a few minutes. Definitely did not see that one coming. Maybe I should have, because he's the Sambo world champion multiple times. I think it was multiple times. So clearly he's very good on the ground, which I didn't know he was actually the world champion going into it. I just knew he was really good on the ground, and he was from Dagestan. But yeah, absolutely destroyed Mario Souza. Was not even close, not even for a second. Basically just kind of took him down and just destroyed his arm. One of the craziest Kimuras I've ever seen. You don't normally see Kimuras. It's actually the first one on Contender Series history, they said. But yeah, that was one of the nastiest Kimuras I have ever seen. Like, smooth too. He didn't even have time to tap. Did not have time to tap. Had it behind his back and fully turned. And it actually, I don't know if anything was torn or popped out, but it sure looked like it. It sure looked bad. So I can't imagine that Souza's arm or shoulder is doing well today. I would think. So yeah, just absolutely sensational performance by Aliskerov there. Clearly got the contract, of course, and very much looks like he can easily compete in the UFC as it is already. Last up was Farid Basharat, and we're going to be talking about his brother too, Javid Basharat, because he is fighting this weekend. He's also undefeated, and Farid Basharat is still undefeated. I was going to say, I wouldn't say dominated Bagoso in this one, Alan Bagoso. He kind of dominated, though, let's be honest. He clearly won all 3 rounds, and he actually even got a 10-8 on one of the cards, and even on my card, I had a 10-8 on one of the rounds. So, fairly clearly won it. A lot of Well, it's really actually even Basharat said it well himself that really he could have gotten the finish if Bogoso wasn't so tough, because that's really all it was. It was Bogoso just barely clinging on for a couple of those rounds, especially that 10-8 round. I mean, it was looking like he was going to get a finish there for sure. And he also looks UFC ready, I would say, just like Aliskerov in Brazil. But anyway, yeah, the contracts, like I said, all 5 of them did get the contract. The only one I wasn't sure about was Peek, because of the way that he won the fight. I mean, like, he got destroyed the first round, and then he came back and really kind of just won because the other guy was just exhausted. So, like, I wasn't sure if he was going to get a contract like that. But again, he showed heart and a good chin, which is what Dana said. So I guess that makes sense. The other ones, though, absolutely no surprise whatsoever. I mean, Marcos off the 3-year layoff beat somebody who was pretty good and dominated them. I thought that was a pretty clear contract. And then really the other three, I mean, Aliskerov, Brazil, and Basharat, they're ready for the UFC as it is. So that was no surprise there at all. So yeah, my top 5 in order, of course, 5th place, Trevor Peek. Makes sense. Again, got destroyed the first round. The only person really out of this entire list who had a really hard time. Then 4th, I had Daniel Marcos. He looked okay, but I can tell he's probably going to have trouble in the UFC. That being said, again, he did have that 3-year layoff. So what can you say about that? 3rd, Farid Basharat. He didn't get the finish, so I didn't give him the number 1 or number 2 spot, but he still looked really, really good and clearly UFC ready. And just like his brother, probably going to do very, very well. I'm very confident that they are both very, very good. They might actually be, now that I think about it, maybe they could actually be the best brothers in the UFC. I'm trying to think of who is better, but I mean, you got Figueiredo, but I mean, like, his brother isn't necessarily that good. And Burns, his brother's also not really that good. This is kind of the only brother dynamic where it's like, oh, okay. Like, they're both pretty solid. They're both undefeated. What can you say? So yeah, they're clearly both good. I mean, the Kosies, one of them's fighting this week too. I don't know. I don't think they're that great, but yeah, the Basharats though, there's something else. Anyway, and then 2nd place I had Bruna, Brazil. Incredible, absolutely sensational. And I mean, the only reason why she wasn't number 1 is because Aliskerov is number 1, and truly, he easily looks like he could compete maybe in the top 15 already. And that's actually what they were saying. Even Dana White and them were saying backstage, like, this guy could really actually be in the top 15 in his first fight. They're not going to do that because they don't want to give, they don't want to give him a top 15 fight right away. They want to ease him into it, but he's definitely in that position. And it's the same thing as Almeida. He was already ready for the top 15. You can't tell me he wasn't ready for the top 15 right away, but they're giving him a few fights to kind of work himself into it. And I'm sure they're going to do the same thing with Aliskerov to a certain extent. He's probably going to get 1 or 2 fights. Then he'll get thrown into the deep end, somebody in the top 15 after that. But yeah, and I mean, even Bruna, Brazil, clearly I think is in that position as well. She is definitely top 15 material in the strawweight. Yeah, in the strawweight division too. I mean, she's very, very good. And she's an awkward person to deal with because she's an awkwardly tall person for that kind of weight class and clearly has power. So yeah, dangerous. And of course, my best of the rest, BLÜ's best of the rest. I actually had 2 on this one. It was actually both of the Lewises, Brandon Lewis and Malik Lewis, because Brandon Lewis looked fantastic, to be honest. And I think he'll pretty easily get another shot at the Contender Series. Because I mean, Marcos was just that much better. He's just really good. That's all. For this kind of thing anyway. And he never gave up, and he still kind of had a chance. Maybe, like, he maybe could have done something. I don't know. So yeah, Brandon Lewis made a lot of sense for best of the rest. And then Malik Lewis, like I said, if Peek wasn't so tough, he would have gotten another first round finish because that was crazy, that first round. So I think that's fair. The two Lewises, who, by the way, are not related at all, of course. But yeah, just a weird coincidence that they just happen to be the best of the rest. We will take a short break now, and then we will, of course, come to UFC Vegas 60. Now we're on. How isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy that this is the 60th time we will see the UFC in Vegas at the Apex Center for a fight night? That's insane. I mean, it really just feels like it was last year, but it's not. Like, I mean, actually, it really feels like, like really just a year ago that we started doing this. But yeah, no, we're on, I think, year number 3 of being at the Apex doing these things. Amazing. I mean, it's just crazy to think where we're at now, especially because of COVID and all that, where we were before. Anyway, let's take our quick break. I need to, oh yeah, my computer is just silly. So there's a lot of lag. Anyway, so I will see you right after this short break.
Allow me to introduce High Stick Vodka, a new way to celebrate victory. Gather around the glass with an award-winning, ultra-premium Canadian-made vodka. You probably won't listen when I say High Stick Vodka has a smooth, hard-hitting taste, or that it's developed in the birthplace of hockey. You won't listen when I say High Stick Vodka is a tribute to the game of hockey, or when I tell you it's distilled 4 times using Canada's purest mountain spring water to provide an authentic, remarkable flavor. But maybe you will listen when I say it comes in a fucking hockey stick. Showcase your passion for hockey with our limited edition hand-blown hockey stick bottle. Whether you're celebrating victory or drinking to defeat, High Stick Vodka is better after every shot. Visit us at highstickvodka.com. It also comes in this regular bottle. Celebrate victory. Drink responsibly.
Okay. Oh man. My apologies. We're having some technical difficulties, that is for sure. For some reason, this computer is like half dead now, and it's just like, I literally just got it a year ago, so I don't know why it's being so crazy, but all I'm doing is trying to get the odds up so I can see everything here. So this is probably very laggy right now. That's what it's looking like on my end anyway. But anyway, almost there. Like the whole thing glitched out while the ad was on. Here we go. Okay. Yeah, I can tell the Wi-Fi is probably cutting out a little bit. Okay. So we're back. We're back now. Okay, so we're going to open up with UFC Vegas 60. We're going to open up with the main card. As it stands right now, which actually just changed overnight, it is opening up with Anthony Hernandez and one of our very own Canadians, Marc-Andre Barriault. And we've got 3 Canadians on the card, which is amazing. I mean, actually, it's been the last couple of cards. We've had a few Canadians on each one, which is amazing to see. But we also want to see some wins. We want to see some Canadian wins. Sadly, I'm not sure if this is the matchup where it's going to happen in. I don't think so, to be honest. Yeah, Anthony Hernandez, Marc-Andre Barriault. Anthony Hernandez, he's just been doing a lot better. I do think this is going to be close, but he's submitted Rodolfo Vieira, submitted Jingliang Park, whereas Barriault, he lost to Jingliang Park. He's also been finished a couple of times pretty quick lately. Hasn't necessarily been beating anybody that great. Whereas, Hernandez, Jingliang Park is decent. Rodolfo Vieira is very good. That was actually his first loss. And he submitted BJJ world champion Rodolfo Vieira. So, I mean, that is a very, very impressive. I've considered possibly going for a finish for Hernandez, maybe a submission because I mean he submitted Rodolfo Vieira and Jun Young Park, but I'm not sure. I think I'm still kind of going towards Hernandez by decision on this one. And it's because Barrio has never been submitted before because he is good on the ground. So, I think he should be able to hold on and not get finished like that. But also, I mean, by that logic, Vieira was also never submitted and he's a BJJ world champion. So it's definitely plausible. But also, he got very, very tired, Vieira. So I don't think that Hernandez is going to get a finish, but it's plausible. So I'm probably going to be putting a small bet on the submission as well as, Hernandez winning by decision here. But that's what I've got for that one. I think it's pretty clear though that Hernandez is going to win. He just seems better all around right now. The odds are very close though. Oh, hold on. I need to put up my banner. Banner, please. There it is. Whoa. Okay. I didn't know I could do that on here. Press something weird. Minus 180 for Hernandez right now. Barrios plus 145. I think that's actually pretty generous, to be honest. Because, like I said, Hernandez has been doing very well. Barrio, not really too much. So, minus 180, I think that's a complete steal for Hernandez. I really do. Over under is at 2.5 right now. And it actually is pretty dead even on which way they're going with it. They're actually seem to be leaning towards the under 2.5. The over 2.5 right now is at minus 105. The under minus 123. So, I mean, it's definitely plausible. Like I said, that Hernandez does get the submission win there. But at minus 105, considering that is obviously, in the underdog spot at minus 105, a little bit at least, I would definitely head in that direction, especially since, like I said, they've actually both been in quite a few decisions. So it's not out of the question, that's for sure. And like I said, at minus 105, I would actually say that that's probably the safer bet. And you get more return on your money on that one. So I would actually go towards the over 2.5 at minus 105 right now. But, like I said, Hernandez has grabbed some submission wins. But again, Barrio has also never been submitted. So maybe he's going to get a KO instead. I don't know. But yeah, I'm going with the over on this one, just because, again, you get more return on that. If that happens, I mean, obviously you do get more return. But anyway, that's where I'm going on this one. That was a weird ending. Weird way to end that. Anyway, next up after that is the final Canadian of the night, I should say, because we're actually going to talk about the other one. She is on the prelims. That would be Robertson. But yeah, main card, next one, Tanner Boser. Finally, we get to see the bulldozer Boser back in action. Love that guy. Always exciting. Super nice guy. Great guy. Can't wait to see him fight on here. I'm going Boser on this one, not just because I like him, but also he's just really good. And he's fought the much better people. That's really the way to look at this one. He's fought the much better people. I mean, he lost to Ilir Latifi and Andrei Arlovsky. And to be honest, I mean, I kind of thought he did lose the Arlovsky one, but it was very close. But I thought pretty clearly he won the Latifi one. He's kind of just getting screwed in these decisions, to be honest, because he's doing really well in them and they're against top tier people. And he's also grabbed a lot of finishes along the way. Whereas Nascimento, he hasn't really done a whole lot. He got a finish over Dante Mays, but then he was brutally KO'd by Chris Dawkins. And then he actually did beat Alain Baudot, but then the win was taken away due to PEDs. So, what can you say about that, really? Because it's like the one half decent win that he has is, he was using steroids. So it's like, I mean, that kind of kind of weakens that win a little bit. But also, like I said, then he was KO'd by Chris Daukaus, who is good, but is slightly undersized for the division. And Boner, I can't believe I said that, but Boser is basically exactly the same as Daukaus. Honestly, I think they're very, very similar. I think Daukaus probably might have more power, but in their style, their size, everything about them, Boser is almost exactly the same as Daukaus. So I went with the finish on this one. It just makes sense in that kind of way, where it's the style so much. And like I said, Nascimento hasn't really had a good win yet. He hasn't really had that win at all yet. And Boser has had a few good wins. I believe he knocked out Felipe Lins and a couple other people. I did not write it down, but he does have a few finishes there that are very, very impressive. And again, fought Andrei Arlovsky and Ilir Latifi and kind of beat Latifi at the very least. So that's where I'm going on this one. And you'll be happy to know that the odds are very close on this one. Minus 175 for Boser. Nascimento plus 140. Absolute no-brainer. Clearly going with Boser on this one. And at minus 175, that is fantastic. Those are fantastic odds. So yeah, I'm really liking that betting line. I would even say throw both of those in parlays, Hernandez and Boser, minus 180 and minus 175. Maybe split the two. I mean, I like to make a lot of different parlays. That's kind of what I do. So I'll be probably splitting them apart for the most part because they're still close. But still, I would definitely be putting both of them in parlays for sure, I would say, because they're just convincingly winning these matchups, for me at least. The over-under on this one, over 1.5 is minus 134. 1.5, I should point that out again. 1.5 rounds, minus 34 for over. Under is at plus 105. To be honest, you're talking about heavyweights. Like first round finishes happen constantly. So I don't think it's that crazy to do the under at plus 105. You're talking about heavyweights. You're also talking about Boser, who seems to be clearly better than Nascimento. So, you could even see him get the finish in the first part of the second round if he doesn't get it in the first. So, that still would cash in the plus 105. I just think it's pretty ballsy to go with late second round or third round or a decision for Boser and Nascimento. I just don't see that. So I think at heavyweight, it makes a lot more sense to go with plus 105 at under 1.5. It makes a lot of sense. So yeah, that's where I'm going with it. Next one, Alan Amedovski, Joe Pyfer. This is, I would say, probably the most one-sided one of the night, pretty clearly. Amedovski has yet to win in the UFC, destroyed in both of his UFC fights. Yeah, very early in the first round. I think one of his fights was like 15 seconds. The other one was like a minute and 15 seconds or so. So, he's getting destroyed early. And, not really even against the best people. He lost to Joseph Holmes. And did I write who else he was down here? I did not. But I remember it wasn't anybody that you'd be like, oh, that makes sense. Like, it wasn't really anybody like that. Whereas Joe Pyfer clearly has a lot of power. Like, very, very powerful guy and relentless, always walking forward. This is a first round KO if you've ever seen one. Really, that's where I'm going with it on the bets for sure. So yeah, clear parlay opportunity in Joe Pyfer on this one. Minus 500 on the odds right now. Plus 350 for Amedovski. It's just a clear one. That's a parlay. That's for sure a parlay. Minus 500. Over under on this one. Heavily favoring under 1.5 right now at minus 200. That's kind of where I'm going with it too. It is kind of insane to say that somebody is minus 200 to finish, or that the fight is minus 200 to finish under 1.5 rounds. But again, that really just speaks to how much of a mismatch this really is. So I would actually say the minus 200 makes a lot of sense on the under 1.5, where you might even want to put that into a parlay, or even, like I said, do that same fight parlay, Joe Pyfer under 1.5, or even first round KO Joe Pyfer, something like that. That's kind of what you're looking at here. Because I don't think this is going to be close, that one. Next up, Andre Fili, Bill Algeo. On the odds, this is actually fairly close, and on paper, maybe a little bit close. But to be honest, I really don't see that this is going to be all that close. I think this is going to be a fairly dominant win for Bill Algeo, to be honest. I really do. I do think this is going to be a decision because Fili doesn't really get finished. He was in his last fight, but I think that was really more so who he was fighting in the last one. Brito, he got knocked out by Brito in the first round. Brito, unbelievable power. So that makes a lot of sense. And it's a little bizarre to me, this betting line. And I got to say why, because it's like Brito absolutely destroyed Fili. And again, that makes sense because Brito is big. But you know who beat Joe Anderson Brito? None other than Bill Algeo. Bill Algeo beat Brito, and Fili was knocked out by Brito in a couple minutes. So to me, I don't think, like, even just that fact alone, you got to go towards Algeo. There's just way more going in Algeo. He's also just been doing a lot better recently. Algeo, 3-2 record. And absolutely destroyed Herbert Burns in his last fight, to the point where it was like, I don't think Herbert Burns is going to be around a lot longer, because that was dominance. Like, he destroyed him. And I've never seen a fight end basically by exhaustion, but that's pretty much what happened. He just didn't get back up. The ref told him to get up. He didn't get back up. So Algeo won. And that's really just a testament to how badly Algeo was beating him up. It was pure dominance. And in just nonstop. So for me, that nonstop action, especially, like I said, beating Brito like that, you got to imagine that he's going to beat Fili, who has a lot of losses. He's got a lot of losses recently, and he's been losing to people like Algeo. You know, he lost to Sadiq Youssef. He lost to Bryce Mitchell. He lost to quite a few other people because he's been around for so long in the UFC. So I just don't see how he wins this. I just think Algeo is just miles better everywhere. I really do. So I don't think this is really going to be even that close, which plays fantastically into these odds here. Minus 128 for Fili on this one. So we've got the underdog on this one, plus 105 for Bill Algeo. And I got to say, this is the best looking underdog of the night for sure. Not even close. This guy's the underdog of the night for me. So yeah, I'm going with plus 105 for Bill Algeo on this one all day. Over under, they are going towards a decision, minus 240 for that over 2.5, which again makes a lot of sense. Like I said, the only time that Fili's been knocked out was against Brito, and Bill Algeo is not necessarily a finisher either. So I'm thinking a pretty clear decision on this one. So I'm thinking, you run that into this, the same fight parlay, or maybe even do what I said before, go with Pyfer under 1.5 at minus 200 and this one at minus 240. There's a lot of opportunities on this card. This is actually a very good looking card betting wise. There's a lot of things going on. There's also a lot of very close fights. You don't normally see that. Usually on a card of this size, you end up seeing 5 or 6 fights that are in the minus 300 to minus 500 range, maybe even a minus 700 or something thrown in there. But you don't have that on this card. This card does not really have that. There are a lot of close fights. So a lot of betting opportunities on this card. Very, very nice. I love this card. I really do. Next up, Chidi Njokuani, Gregory Rodriguez. This one is fairly close, and I see why the odds are close on this one. But I gotta say, 50-50 betting wise, there's a lot of things going on. There's also a lot of very close fights. You don't normally see that. Usually on a card of this size, you end up seeing 5 or 6 fights that are in the minus 300 to minus 500 range, maybe even a minus 700 or something thrown in there. But you don't have that on this card. This card does not really have that. There are a lot of betting opportunities on this card. I really do. Next up, Chidi Njokuani, Gregory Rodriguez. I think it's pretty clear what's going to be happening here, to a certain extent at least, because Chidi Njokuani has destroyed both of his UFC opponents so far. Absolutely annihilated Barrio in, I believe it was less than a minute in his UFC debut. This is all just this year too, by the way. Chidi opened up the year with that crazy first round finish. I think it was like 30 seconds, maybe even shorter than that, over Barrio. Amazing. Then he followed it up with another first round KO, this time over Dushko Todorovic. So, I mean, 2 first round finishes. And then now he's going against Gregory Rodriguez, who is very tough and very strong, very talented. But he lost to Dushko Todorovic. Rodriguez lost to Dushko. So to me, that already leans it in way towards Chidi Njokuani. But not even just that. Rodriguez was also knocked out in the first round on his Contender Series fight against Jordan Wright. Or was it Jordan Wright or Jordan Williams? Either way, a first round finish against somebody who I don't even think is as good as Chidi. So to me, Chidi's got the extra length. He's got insane power, and he's already got 2 first round finishes. I think that he can get another, possibly even first round finish in this one. If not, I think the length and the power is going to be a real problem, and the activity is going to be a real problem for Rodriguez. So I'm definitely going Njokuani on this one, especially by finish. Even I would say. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, so the odds -123 for Njokuani. So they do see that. They do see that he's got the win over Dushko. I think that was kind of what's leaning them towards that. Also, the 2 first round finishes in a row for sure. So -123. I think that's fantastic for what we're seeing here. Like I said, for that kind of matchup, I think -123 is really, really looking good to me. +100 for Rodriguez. Yeah. I mean, he's definitely got some grappling. That's for sure. He's good. He's tough. But I just think Njokuani has got the power. He's got the reach. He's something. He's going to be something big here. I can tell. So yeah. And the over-under on this one is over-under 1.5 right now, which is interesting. -137 for over 1.5. So I guess if you're thinking, okay, and if Njokuani doesn't get that first round finish, we're probably going to be going to a decision here. That's how I see it. So, you take with that, you can kind of play around with that however you want to with that information, because I do think that it's like, I honestly think that Njokuani is either going to get a first round finish, or this is probably going to be going to a decision. I think. But that being said, he did get a 3rd round knockout once, so I don't know. But Rodriguez also isn't really the kind of person that gets knocked out after the first round. He's very much a decision kind of guy. So that's why I'm saying, not crazy to go for a decision on this one. But I am going with the under 1.5 at +105, because, I mean, the odds are there, like I said, but also, like I said, Rodriguez was knocked out before in the first round of his Contender Series fight, while Chidi has knocked out 2 guys in a row in the first round, including somebody that Rodriguez lost to. So to me, I think under 1.5 at +105, not crazy, not a crazy betting line to go with. So I'll be writing that down for sure. Then we've got the main event. Oh man, what a fight. I cannot wait for this one. This is a banger. This is a very, very exciting bantamweight fight. And I mean, really, what bantamweight fight isn't exciting? Bantamweight is incredible constantly. So you got Corey Sandhagen, Song Yadong. Yeah, I stand with the odds on this one. I'm a little confused as to why so many people have Song on this one. I like him. I think he's very talented, and I think he is good. But you're talking about a 5-round fight against somebody who's challenged for the title against Petr Yan. And by the way, won a couple of rounds against Petr Yan, who I do not think that Song could do that. I really don't think, because Yan is very, very, very good. So, I mean, and then not only did he do that, but he also, let's be honest, he actually beat TJ Dillashaw, because I scored it that way. A lot of other people scored it that way. It was a split decision, a split decision with TJ Dillashaw. That really says enough as it is, because I don't know how Yadong would do against that. I think that Song is good, but could he go to a decision? Well, I think he could go to a decision with Dillashaw, but is he going to do better than Sandhagen in that? I just don't think so. And then the other loss that Sandhagen has is to Aljo. And Aljo specifically actually even said himself that Sandhagen is probably the toughest challenge for most people, and that he's not saying he got lucky by getting the decision, but he was lucky that he got it that early before they started sweating, because when they fought, Sterling got the submission very early before Sandhagen got the chance to do anything. And that's how he won that. And, Song is more of a brawler, so that's not going to happen. So really, you're getting into that territory of TJ Dillashaw and Petr Yan. That's what you're looking at comparing it to. Can Song Yadong be as good as those two right now? And I just don't see that. That's why you got to go with Sandhagen. He's just better, like he's not going to grab a finish. I don't think he's going to grab a finish or anything like that, but he will win a fairly solid decision. And again, the whole point that it's 5 rounds. He went 5 rounds with Dillashaw and won, and he went 5 rounds with Petr Yan and won a couple of those rounds. So, can Song Yadong keep up his regular pace for 5 rounds instead of 3? I just don't see it. I just don't see it. So I actually think that this betting line is pretty fantastic too for what you're getting too. Minus 209 for 209 Nate Diaz. Minus 209 for Sandhagen right now. Yeah, and Song Yadong at plus 166. I think that's pretty clear. Song Yadong minus 209. I'm throwing that in a parlay too. I think it's looking really good. And the over-under is at 4.5 rounds. They're clearly heavily favoring that decision. I think that's pretty fair. I don't think that Sandhagen is going to be able to finish Song, so I think that's a pretty fair way to go with it. Minus 160 for over 4.5. That's where I'm going with it. And, I was going to say that's it, but we've got the prelims. We've got a couple of prelims that I want to talk about. And of course, one of them being our third Canadian, the first Canadian of the night, though, that we will see. And that is Jillian Robertson, and then going against Maria Agapova. It is very close, I got to say. Like I said, all these fights on the card are very close. They really, really are. But this is one where I think it's really only close because people aren't necessarily paying attention to the style matchup on this one. And the style, it's very clear. You could not be more of a submission artist than Jillian Robertson. She doesn't really fight much on the feet. She wants to get that down to the ground, get the submission. That is it. That is her entire game plan, 24/7, 365, no matter what fight she's in. So we know what she's going to do. On the other side, Agapova, decent, very good, talented, but she's been submitted. She's been submitted multiple times. So to me, and by people that aren't as good as Jillian Robertson. So to me, I think what they're kind of doing here is they've been noticing that Robertson hasn't really been winning all that much, and they're giving her a very favorable matchup on the cards here, on paper here, to somebody who's been submitted a couple times, because she is such a good submission artist. So to me, I don't really think this is going to, I think we're going to be seeing a Robertson finish again here. And she does get a lot of finishes. It's not like I'm just saying that, because she gets submission, she's going to submit this. Yeah, that is what I'm saying. But I'm also saying this will not reach a decision because that's not really her style. She doesn't really go to a whole lot of decisions. She either gets a submission or she gets knocked out trying to get a submission. That's kind of what's been happening. Or she gets submitted by somebody who's very, very good herself. But really, all that's happened is Robertson keeps losing to people that are bigger. She's lost to, I wrote it down here, I believe. Yeah. So she lost to Barber, who's huge, Tyler Santos, who's massive. Neither one of these people, I mean, like, really, to be honest, they easily could be fighting up a division, really, both of them. And then you got Courtney Casey, or no, not Courtney Casey. That's who she beat. Miranda Maverick, who's also very big and very talented on the ground. And then you've got JJ Aldrich, who's massive. And that was her last fight. JJ Aldrich is huge. So all four of those ladies are big. Maria Agapova is not. She's not that big. Whereas Jillian Robertson, she's submitted Emily Whitmire, Molly McCann, Courtney Casey, and Priscilla Cajueira. All four of those are top tier. Like, they're very talented prospects. And she submitted all four of them. And then you go, like I said, Agapova has been submitted. She submitted, I didn't actually write down who it was, but I basically just said submitted by lesser grapplers. So she's being submitted by people that aren't even close to as good as, I forgot the name, Robertson, as Jillian Robertson. So to me, pretty clear, Jillian Robertson by submission, probably in the first or second round. That's where I'm going with it. And if you look at the odds, they are very close. So, I mean, we could clean up on this entire card, really. Oh, yeah, no, there it is. Okay. I was struggling to find it on the page here. Minus 148. Minus 148 for Jillian Robertson. I mean, like I said, this is a steal. I mean, she's submitting like huge names. I mean, like I said, submitted Molly McCann, Courtney Casey, and Priscilla Cajueira at minus 148. I mean, especially after Agapova was literally just submitted in her last fight in the second round by somebody who's not necessarily into submissions like Robertson is. So I think this is so clear that it might even be an idea to put this on one of the main parlays as well. I think this is a clear one. Minus 148 for Robertson. The over under, actually, I'm just looking at it now. I was just shocked as I was reading it. I was like, what? Why is it like this? Over under 1.5 rounds. That's interesting. Isn't that interesting? That's weird. For a women's fight, to be over under 1.5, that's bizarre, especially when the odds themselves are that close. That's actually very strange. So minus 148 for over 1.5. Under 1.5 is at plus 114 right now. I gotta be honest, I'm a little torn on this one because, again, I don't look at the over-unders before I go into these streams, so I'm just kind of going with what's pretty obvious. I mean, and of course my Tapology picks. I mean, I make my Tapology picks. So I actually said second round submission. So when you see this, it's a little iffy. I'm definitely not opposed to going with the under on this one because you could easily be talking about early second round. The first minute or two of the second round, she could get a submission. She could very easily get it in the first round as well. Because, like I said, Agapova, not necessarily the best on the ground. Man, that's tough. Yeah, I mean, the value is definitely more so on the under. So if you're going for value, I would definitely be going towards plus 114 as the under 1.5. But if you're going towards maybe slightly more realistic, you might want to go with minus 148 over 2.5 because Robertson tends to, she's gotten a few submissions late in the second round. Man, that's tough. That's a tough one. But like I said, I mean, if you really, I think it's still going to be in the second round. So, I mean, really, if you split that in half, you know, it's dead even. It could happen in the first half or the second half of the round. So, plus 114, there is definitely more money there. So, I mean, you tend to want to go with the one that has the most value in it. So, I'm saying for the value, go with the under 1.5 at plus 114. I think that's where the value is for this one. But that's where I'm going with it anyway. This next one, though, I gotta say, I'm really torn about this one. It is the ranked women's fight of the night here. It is Aspen Ladd. I'm trying to find it on here. There it is. Aspen Ladd and Sarah McMahon. I am so torn on this one. I am so torn on this one. And I've been going back and forth on it. But I've landed on Sarah McMahon. And it's really just because of the style. And I gotta say, I could still be convinced either way. I really could be. But it's so dead even. I really do think so because Ladd, I mean, what can you say about Ladd? She's been struggling. Like, she's been struggling really bad. Looked awful against Norma Dumont. Looked not great in her last fight either. Kind of got dominated in both of them, and it was because of the grappling too. And on the other side, you've got Sarah McMahon, who is actually, I believe, an Olympic wrestler. She was in the Olympics before, from what I remember. I could be wrong about that, but she is very clearly a grappler. So to me, it's kind of like, how are you going to be, you just got dominated 2 fights in a row in grappling. How are you going to do with somebody who that's all they do is grappling? Plus, I watched the tape and Sarah McMahon had a heavier pace. She's very quick, never sits still, always moving, and really a high pace constantly. Whereas Ladd, the exact opposite. She's more somebody that's reacting and a little slower, doesn't necessarily move a lot. So, I mean, I just have to imagine that McMahon is going to basically just out grapple her. Like, I mean, I definitely don't see a finish for sure, but that's kind of what I'm seeing is a lot of grappling. And the main reason why I'm not 100% sold on this is because Aspen Ladd is 14 years younger. 14 years younger than her. So, like that's not really good. In terms for McMahon, that's for sure. So, I mean, this is definitely one of her last couple of fights. So it's kind of like, how is she going to be doing in this? That's the only thing that has me kind of going back and forth on this one. But like I said, if you go towards the style, Sarah McMahon should win this. And I will point out, though, that age in this case is seemingly just a number. I mean, yes, it will catch up to you very quickly. And I mean, I'm sure there's not a whole lot left for McMahon. I hate to say it, but there's not a whole lot left because I think she was 44 or something. I can't really remember specifically the number, but I think that was the number. I think it was 44. But anyway, it's kind of like, like I will say, oh yeah, that's what I was. Ow, I hit my finger on my laptop. But like I said, what I was gonna say though is that Sarah McMahon didn't slow down in her last fight. She looked fantastic. A pretty good opponent too. Oh yeah, Carol Hossa. Carol Hossa is pretty good, and she absolutely dominated her. Like McMahon dominated Carol Hossa, and I was pretty impressed by that, I gotta say. And it was really mostly with the grappling. She looked fantastic. So, I mean, the number is a problem. The age is a problem, but I just have to imagine that McMahon is going to pull this off with some grappling. Also, you have to think too, Ladd has had a lot of problems cutting weight down to this weight class. So is she going to be 100% going into this? I don't think so. Like, I don't think so. She's had so many problems, even like probably needing to go to the hospital a few times for her weight cuts. So, I mean, it could get pretty rough with that. So I think even on that, with the pace of McMahon, the grappling of McMahon, I think it might be too much. And that's why I will be going with McMahon by decision. But it's very, very close. I know I talked about that for a long time, but I'm just letting everybody know, that's what I do with all of my things. It's like, I'm telling you exactly what I'm thinking and exactly why I'm thinking it, which is why, usually, again, I have a 70% average. Like, I'm pretty good. So I'm just telling you why I'm going in the direction that I'm going on this one. So yeah. And the odds -143 for Ladd, plus 116 for McMahon. And I do think that is entirely because of the age, because I think it's pretty clear if McMahon was even just 5 years older than Ladd, it'd be a completely different story. We'd be looking at McMahon being a fairly significant favorite, I would say, because of the natural ability there and the styles, the clash of styles in this one. So I see where they're coming from with the odds, but you got to go with the underdog on this one, especially since it is that close and she does have that much going for her. I'm going with McMahon at plus 116 on this one. Yeah. And then the over-under, of course, heavily favoring the decision, -200 for over 2.5. Yeah. I mean, I think that's pretty fair. Yeah. Anyway, oh yeah, so that is it. So I will give you the parlays, some good looking parlays before we go, and that will be it. I'll keep the banner up there for now. Let's see what we got. Well, we got Basharat. He is going against Tony Gravely, who's very talented. I do think Basharat's going to win. He's at -167. So you could maybe throw Basharat into a couple of those. Robertson at -148. I think that's a good one. Zellhuber's at -313 right now. That might not be a bad idea. Nothing in the next couple. Trevin Giles. I think it's Giles. Giles? Giles, yeah. Trevin Giles, -217. I think that's pretty fair. That's going in my parlays quite a bit. Sabatini at -193. I think he's looking fantastic in that matchup against Damon Jackson. So I'm not even opposed to, doing that in a decision, in a parlay. Hernandez -180. That's going in the parlay. Bozer at -175. That's in a parlay. Joe Pyfer all day. Joe Pyfer all fucking day in the parlay. Sandhagen -209. Parlay all day. Njokuani, Njokuani and Bill Algeo, I would probably stay away from those in terms of the parlays. But yeah, there's a lot of really, really good looking ones. So like I said, Sandhagen, Pyfer, those are for sure we're putting those in. Bozer, I think pretty clear. Hernandez, I like a lot. Sabatini, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I would throw that in the parlay, to be honest. It's close. Jackson's good. Giles, I'm pretty convinced about that one, to be honest. So maybe. Yeah, Zellhuber -313. Robertson, I really like in this one. I really like Robertson in that one. Basharat, I'm still undefeated, and his brother just won too. So you kind of got to go with that momentum as well. So yeah, that's it. A lot of good. I mean, the betting opportunities this week all over the card. Parlays, over-unders, finishes, just people in general, underdogs in general. Fantastic looking card on this one. It's a good looking card. Let's just say that. That is it for me. Area 51 has got everything else, all the other sports. My socials are below. That's YouTube, Insta, Twitter. That's where I put all my bonuses, also other content, of course, a lot of other content, of course. Yeah. Oh, and then next week, what have we got next week? Like I said, No UFC next week. Instead, I'll just be talking about, of course, this card and week 9, wow, of the Contender Series. And of course, Unified MMA. Actually, no, I won't be talking about that next week because Unified MMA is on, I believe, Thursday. So I won't be talking about it. But that is something that we'll be looking at. Well, I guess the week after I'll be looking at it. So that's, oh shit, that's going to be a big week. Wow, that's a big week, actually, the week after that. Because then you've got, oh, actually, no, that's just a regular week, I guess. Because you've got week 9, or week 10, I should say, and Unified, and then the upcoming UFC. So that's still 3. So we've actually got a pretty normal show. But next week, yeah, I guess there's not really a whole lot. It's just me talking about this card. So it's going to be a nice short one next week. How nice is that? Anyway, that is it for me. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope we can get these these numbers up eventually. I have a great time doing this. Also, I mean, we get some money. We've got good bets here, and I'm getting better again. I had a rough few months there where I was just not doing my process properly, but now that I've been getting back into my process of doing everything the way that it needs to be done, for me at least, I can tell that my picks are getting much, much better. So I think that we're going to keep that going. Yeah, keep the money rolling. So I hope that we can get some more people watching, make some money for everybody, not just me. So yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. And yeah, I will see you next time.